Good evening. You're listening live to the Xtreme Movie Show. I'm your host, Rob, broadcasting to you as usual from the Pine Hills Palace in the Xtreme Studios, just west of Orlando, Florida. I have from the Great Midwest RDV. And RDV today, it was about 65 degrees, dry, slightly breezy. Beautiful day here in Central Florida. Winter for us. I dare to think of what it's like for you there, but
Oh, it was a beautiful 41 summer for us.
nice. Did you see some ghosts and about your gloomy area? Shall I send somebody to terminate them?
Nah, no, I don't stop by the senior homes anymore. But no, actually, we got a car wash today.
Oh,
Crazy.
really?
It was warm enough to get a car wash.
Nice.
Get all that salt and junk off the car.
Well, as people are filing in the chat here, let's remind everybody that this is a very serious podcast, if we could be serious for a moment, because we are, of course, continuing with Movie Thunderdome, where two movies enter and one movie leaves. The two movies, of course, are a preview of the 1984 films that we're going to be discussing about group-wise next Sunday. And, of course, we have two really powerhouse films of 84 that we have to see which one ends up being on top. And you've got Ghostbusters in one corner, and in the other one, you've got the Terminator. So, strong matchup again, just like last year, 1983 that we did last week. RDV, give me your initial thoughts on these two as a matchup, and then go right into Ghostbusters.
I love both of these, man. I was just watching Terminator, man. I had to refresh myself on this because I love both movies for not only for their musical scores, but also for this the comedy, the action, the scenes, everything. This is science fiction versus science fiction, bro. With a little bit of comedy more in the one on to the left of me. Mm-hmm. And then Terminator, man. It's just, they're wonderful. Cameron versus Reitman. Bernstein versus Fidel. As far as music goes. Oh, man. Ghostbusters, it's no secret that Ghostbusters has always been one of my favorite movies in the 80s, if not the favorite.
Yes.
But
yes.
Terminator, man, is on another level by itself when it comes to 80s movies. And not just as Arnold, it's just the fact that it's so written so damn well. It's such an awesome story. It takes place, back in 1984, but it talks about robots from the future, which would be 2024. But going back over the Ghostbusters, the late Harold Ramis and Dan Aykroyd wrote this story. To produced by produced by Ivan Reitman, who also directed it as well. Mm-hmm. Honestly, it is the Saturday Night Live crew, combined with the SCTV, Harold Ramis, and I love it. You got Rick Moranis in here too as well, Sigourney Weaver, who's hot in this as well. And it's just a perfect cast, perfect storyline as far as three guys go into business for basically hunting and trapping ghosts. They end up Ernie Hudson basically ends up joining the team later on. They take down a god level, I guess you'd say, like a demon or a deity, whatever. Mm-hmm. You got a giant marshmallow guy. There's just jokes left and right. It is just wonderful. It's I still say it's Harold Ramis' best role. I did like him in Stripes. He's been in some other movies, but this was the bread and butter. And Bill Murray is his peak level. Bill Murray. I think he just kind of went downhill from this movie. But I could be biased because I love him as Venkman. But except the whole shebang came together, especially special effects, the music, the one-liners. It is just awesome from the get-go all the way to the end.
It's a very happy film, right? Fun film, right? You feel good watching it.
Yes. Like I said, it's we if you guys went back about a month or two ago, we reviewed Ghostbusters 2. Mm-hmm. Different story with that. That one had a slower this kept the pace going all the way through, and the sense of terror. But you also got the special effects, the props. We get the eggs, basically grilling on our countertop.
Yep.
And he watched behind the scenes about that, how they did this. It was really cool. But everything has a place in this. The Stay Puft marshmallows that are on her counter come back at the end.
Yeah.
It's just, like I said, it's the right time, the right cast, the perfect writing, everything, and just and who knew this movie would still be putting out as a franchise. So we got another the fourth movie coming out. We had the third one on 2021, and it is just basically just keeps on giving. Where the movie to the right of us, well, that just kept producing crappy sequels after the second one.
I don't know about that.
I would say so. 3 is probably maybe the last semi decent one. Then we get the Genesis, then there's Salvation, and then whatever the hell the last one was.
Yeah, they all kind of like aren't memorable, are they?
No, not really.
I'm trying to judge these two films not on the franchises that they spawned, right? Because this
Sure.
is the matchup. And I agree with you. Ghostbusters is a very fun film, and I think these two films are a great representation of what I've said. The '80s is about. You've got Ghostbusters in one corner that is a feel-good movie. You could take a kid to watch it. You could take a woman to watch it, a date, an old person. Doesn't matter your age, race, creed, whatever.
Robots.
Yeah, but then you got the Terminator, which is just, let's be honest, it's a bleak film. It's dark, and it's supposed to be. But they juice up the action and everything too. So you kind of, when you focus on that, it's a little bit cooler, but it's certainly probably not for kids. And I mentioned before how a lot of 70s and 80s science fiction got ripped off by people that were great writers in the 50s and 60s and even 70s or even older actually. And Terminator is absolutely no exception. James Cameron ripped off the guy I mentioned before that did A Boy and His Dog, whose name escapes me off the top of my head. The short guy, Harrison, whatever. Bottom line is he ripped the story off and he had to pay a lot of money for it. He's never had a creative idea in my life, which I'm not holding that against him, because a lot of really good ideas in the 50s and 60s in science fiction started to come to fruition, right? And what better person to play the Terminator? Although my understanding, and I did not know this until recently when researching a little bit of Millennium to see if that's something we might review on Xtreme TV, Lance Henriksen apparently was going to maybe be the Terminator. I did not know that.
Did not know that, and I was just so glad he isn't, because he's not intimidating in this movie whatsoever.
He's not supposed to be.
I know, but when you bring in Arnold and just his physique, he doesn't even have to say anything, just walking out, and it's insane as far as what he does. Like the one guy, the boyfriend of her friend Gina, who was protecting Gina because basically Arnold goes to the past, beats up Bill Paxton.
Yes.
Yes. Bill Paxton with his mohawk, steals the other guy's clothes, or basically, and then goes in there and just goes on the phone book and tosses the guy who looks like Tugboat from the WWF. Tosses him on the way, and
could have been.
Looks the phone booth and goes, Sarah Connor. There's 3 of them. He goes down the list, killing all the Sarah Connors until he gets to the third one, and he goes to her house, and she's not there. She's at a nightclub, because she feels like she's being stalked, so she's waiting there. The cops show up. Meanwhile, we get this cool stuff with Michael Biehn, who also came back from the future to the past. Takes the homeless man's pants. He stole my pants. He yells as the cop goes by in the alleyway. I love they go into the little the mall thing area, the little store, convenience store. He just grabs the jacket. Then he goes and you see him. Like, where is he? And she'll show at the bottom of the phone booth. Back in the day, you could pull the curtain, you could take photos.
Yeah,
we see the pride placement, the Nikes.
Yes,
puts them on.
Yes,
I love this.
Nike was very young at this point, to be honest with you. They were not even 10 years old, I don't think.
But oh my gosh, it's just everything. This movie, Arnold, his character goes to the gun store, basically the army surplus. He's like, I want everything. And the guy's like, okay, we'll be 15 days. He's like, no, and he just kills the guy. He basically fires the shotgun at him. Kills him. And that's another actor we saw who was in The Hauling, if I believe. That's another guy. It's the guy who was at the library.
Okay, it's possible. Yeah,
he had the bookstore. It's the same guy. I forget what his name is, but he's a character actor, kind of like Morgan Freeman is. He just kind of pops up everywhere. Mm-hmm. But Morgan Freeman's a little more memorable for obvious reasons. But
he became that.
Yeah. But going through this, like I said, you're following this. Even from the very opening, the opening scene, the opening music. The synth wave, everything.
Yes.
You see they're in the future. You see the giant tanks are running and they're blowing up. The one girl gets killed by the laser thing and just explodes in meat chunks. Yeah. I just love it. And then we go to the club scene eventually. Where she's hiding out there. You see Arnold walks in. You look in and she happens to knock something off the table. So it's just by chance she bends over. He doesn't see her. And then her eyes slowly lock with Kyle Reese's, and then Arnold sees her, and then she's, oh crap, and he's got the scope with the laser on it in her head, and then you just see Kyle Reese come in with a shotgun. It is just a fun movie all the way through. Like I said, these are both movies. I mean, especially the one of Terminator. Terminator is like something you'd see in a 1950s comic book. But of course, there'd be the comic book authority, so you wouldn't be able to yell all this gore and stuff. Yeah. The only thing I would have loved though is we have to see Arnold swing in the beginning of the movie when he's walking down the street. Ugh.
Yeah, it's some things I'll point out here too. Like I'll go back to Ghostbusters here. One of the things I like about it, and we'll get into what we don't like. I really do like the funness of seeing Ghostbusters. Everybody's kind of having fun. They're taking roles fairly seriously. They let each other shine. They're not trying to necessarily outdo each other. It's harmless. It's good. It's wholesome in a sense. I'm not going to say it's a morale watching kind of movie, but it is cool to see a piece where it's not one person, where it is a group of people. Because buddy cops are one things, and teams, the trios team are always that's a hard thing to do. And Ramis does a good job of, I don't think of him as an actor, even though he's done a lot of acting, obviously. So I'm not shitting on him, but they all do a good job of filling, because Dan Aykroyd could turn it on if he wants to. But of course, the Bill Murray being the story guy and the anchors, is smart to kind of leave it up to him. Bill Murray's shtick gets annoying sometimes to me a little bit, because I think he's not really trying, but that's not a bad thing. And in certain doses, it's super good. And I go, I don't know who else could play him, where the sarcasm is more funny, whereas if you have a Chevy Chase, it could almost be a bit more bitter, I think, and slapstick. So I think it's a really fun film. I just remember how much fun, and I keep saying the word fun, which I don't say a lot here on Xtreme Movie Show, about Ghostbusters. So it definitely sticks out in that mind. And the graphics are cool. They're not scary and like that. Then you get over the Terminator. We talked about with Conan a couple weeks ago on our 1982 films, about how this basically locked him into being stardom. Now, he'd already busted his ass for about 10 years now. His success in all the fields he went into, business, weightlifting, Mr. Universe, all that crap. And now he's trying to do it in acting. So he's a guy that's used to working hard and getting good advice and being successful. He's the American dream in a way, if you want to think of it that way. And so you got a great physique here that's very super villain, whatever you want to call it here. What I think's pretty neat about the film is some of the scenes you talked about. Cameron, by this point, if you hadn't been too familiar with his work, or of course knew what comes later, you start to really describe in great detail, like the bar scene, where that's just a great visual. And so almost everybody thinks of Arnold being naked, the clothes scene, and the bar scene. But they forget about the opening thing where people are getting vaporized, or like in Terminator 2, for example, and you're like, fucker, this guy has a vision. And when Cameron puts that vision on, you're definitely getting something that's very well defined. Whether it's your style or taste or not, you don't know. But he was always very good at using the technology that existed at that time in the best way possible. And say what you want about Titanic, that blew everybody away when it came out, and he just constantly does it. You see that with Avatar, whether you agree with the politics of the film or whatever, it doesn't matter. But I think the Terminator, they did a smart job of focusing on the action, because he's supposed to be the bad guy. But it was cool to see a guy this is a bad motherfucker like that, because let's be honest, Reese or whoever comes and all that, he's a bit of a whiny ass, isn't he? So it's kind of like,
I disagree. I think anything, he's more annoyed because the fact that he gets arrested by the Lance Henriksen and the cops, you're like, you're a loony bin, and then the whole thing. So I love it when the cop place gets shot up, because, well, geez, if you just would have listened to somebody instead of having your head up your ass, and I always love that part, because they think they know everything, they think this guy is a thing, but it's one of those things. It plays on the personality, I guess, flaws of each character. Like if they talk about the cops, when we find out there's a second body dropping Sarah Connor, like the one cop, he's like, oh, I don't really want to talk to the press. No, it's like they're basically cops, disgruntled cops. That's what it sounds like to me. They're not bad cops. It's just that they're kind of lazy cops. This isn't James Cameron saying I hate cops.
But let's do this. Let's segue into what we don't like about these films, and let's stay with the Terminator.
Sure.
In the Terminator, who are you supposed to be rooting for?
Well, you're supposed to be for Kyle Reese, which I do, because I like the fact that this, the Terminator, he says, you can't be stopped, and then with these primitive weapons, with these primitive weapons, she's like, can you kill it with these primitive weapons? I don't know. And that line right there sets up the whole thing with Arnold because he's taking shotgun rounds to the back, everything. It's just his cool character. I love the fact he's basically almost undefeatable, and it's basically uh, it makes him more threatening. Instead, and then the way they have to kill him is just awesome. Like I said, it's just I love that fact. So you're rooting for the underdog, you're rooting for them. It's kind of Kyle Reese though. I said to a certain point, I guess you say the whiny part. I guess you're mentioning. Are you talking about when he's yelling at the cops, or just when he's telling her, like in the car? It's like, dude, like, listen to me and stuff, Because I mean, I don't really get the whiny part. If anything, I get the Linda Hamilton being like, "Well, I'll just go die anyway." That shit.
Well, she seemed more believable to me in that
Yeah.
she was helpless and defensive, and I thought she
Yeah.
portrayed that well. I thought the thing with Kyle Reese is that I don't disagree that his actions were heroic, and I know he's supposed to be that way, but just the constant, not whining, maybe it's not the right word, but just that impending sense of doom of, no, I can't stop him. I can only do this and do that. I get it, but there was something about him that didn't really emotionally resonate with me. We go, yeah, I'm really voting for him, because they flow through some of these characters. Obviously, they spent a lot of time on Arnie doing it, and it makes you like Arnie, one, because he's doing all the shit. He's shooting stuff up. He's got all the cool lines. He's dressed neat. He's kicking ass. And this other guy's just barely escaping. And I get he's supposed to be the hero, but when I'm watching it, I just go, fuck this guy.
They definitely glamorized Arnold's character.
Yeah.
And that's by design. You always like Michael Myers. He's glamorized. Jason, Freddy Krueger.
But how much you didn't see Michael Myers that much?
I know, but with the little bit, what people know of? Nightmare on Elm Street. They go Freddy. They love Freddy. They love Jason.
But those first couple films, before Dream Warriors, I'm telling you, those Nightmare movies were dark.
Yeah, I'm just saying it's very. You're supposed to root for the heroes, but most people don't even remember who the kids are in those movies.
I agree with you. They're easily dispatchable 80s teenagers.
And that's kind of what Kyle Reese's kind of character was supposed to be dispatchable too. He says, I've never gone against this kind of model before. I had to let him use you as bait to spot him, because the other ones who said like were rubber, or this one's made out of flesh, and his blood and hair and it sweats, and bad breath, everything. It's like, and what's really cool is you see Arnold's character basically getting into the cop car to chase him off in the car. He knocks the cop out, and then you see his face. He looks like a robot.
Yeah,
the face the prosthetics they put on him, and then of course this comes in the later, with the eye and everything, when he has to like. I love it. It is just so over the top sci-fi. The music, the action, the acting. These movies to me are like, as far as I love them both, man. I can watch either one.
We're talking about what we like and don't like.
So I know.
Like. Let's shift over to Ghostbusters. Tell me about Ghostbusters, where it's weak or where it fails or where it's lacking or what you don't like.
Ghostbusters for me is the scene where the hands coming out of the chair grabbing her. That's Sigourney Weaver and her thing. The light in the door. To me, that was like, okay, I guess this is your attempt to be kind of horror thing. And I'm thinking like, you could probably escape the chair, but she's kind of in that state. But you realize that you think about it, putting logic to it, she's probably, hands come out of my chair, you don't know what to do, you freeze up.
Yeah.
So it's kind of weird to see, like, this is because Aliens was what? 1979, or was it
77, 79, and then 86 was the Aliens, because I think Alien was the first one. Yeah,
you see her in that, and then you see her in this. It's like, what the hell? I don't know. Like Rick Moranis' character was kind of a dull spot for me too.
I know you didn't like that. I was waiting to see if you'd say that.
I will go against the grain, because I don't hate Rick Moranis. I just don't like him in this role. I like him, Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. I think that was a better role for him.
Mm-hmm.
Or even Strange Brew was probably better.
Yeah, Jay's got an interesting comment in there about the immediate cultural impact, and I would suggest that while I think Ghostbusters is immediate, I remember the day that it opened. Like I say, my brother came home with some friends in the street. It's like, oh man, what would you guys go see? Oh, we went and we saw Ghostbusters. I'm like, no, that's gay. I want to go see the Terminator, because you're a teenager, you want to see something that's for kids. And they said, no, it's really a lot of fun. And I ended up seeing it like a week or two later, I think with E or something. And I was like, yeah, this is actually a really fun film. And You know, the
Ghostbusters
thing
came out.
about it is Terminator, I think, got more of its cult following afterwards with it because it does have that dark angle. People did not like dark in the 80s.
Ghostbusters with a 25-30 million budget walked away with $295 million.
That's a 10 bagger, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, yes.
You hit on one or two of those, that makes your whole stock portfolio.
Arnold was still kind of unknown at this point.
True.
People know him from Conan the Barbarian, but really, then this is like his second movie.
I know.
So with this being said, Terminator was what, $6 million for the budget, and then it walked away with 78.
That's a 12 bagger, 13
Yeah.
bagger. Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean that's wow.
But
Both
like
monster hits relative to their budget.
yeah, like I said, but Ghostbusters came out on June 8th, so if you probably saw it during the summer, and then October comes around, and October, right on the 26th, is when Terminator comes out. So everybody's in like, okay, this is horror movie season, Halloween. So watching this with maybe watch Ghostbusters, popcorn flick, and then Terminator comes out. It's like, what is this? This sounds horrific, but the poster looks amazing. It's like, all right, I kind of want to see this. And Lance Henriksen's in it too, so he was probably a popular name back then, probably too. But
I'm gonna name drop here a little bit just to kind of flesh this out a little bit. So in the 80s, I used to watch a lot of shows as a kid. My dad was a musician, so I would watch like Lawrence Welk, Hee Haw. We would watch this show called Austin City Limits, where people would give like a live performance. And I remember being blown away only by two people in the 80s, and everyone's going to be like, how dare you not see that about Eddie Van Halen? He just died. Well, go fuck yourself. I'm one of those moods. I'm a little spicy. But I saw this guy that I had no idea who the hell he was, but I still think it's the number one best guitar of all time looking. But I think, some of his performances are great. I just don't care for his voice, so I kind of knock him down a bit. But that would be Stevie Ray Vaughan. Best blues guitarist I've ever heard. Better than Jimi Hendrix, better than Eddie Van Halen, all that.
He's caught in the crossfire.
Well, yeah, I mean, just tons of stuff and all. And of course, he died, right? The other guy that blew me away is a guy I once in a while like to name drop named Yngwie Malmsteen because it was different. It was very arrogant. It was very in your face. And to this day, I think you have to build up a tolerance to listen to him. But when you get to that point, you're like, fuck yeah, this guy's great. But the thing about it is one died young, left a really big impact. Another one has been around forever, but most people just remember a couple albums in the 80s unless you're a hardcore fan and know the different lineups and stuff, like a band that's been together a long time. And he does it his way. He plays all his own instruments. He mixes his own stuff at home. The mix isn't good anymore. But in the 80s, you're like, who is this guy? This guy's a little different, and he just was better than Eddie Van Halen. He's better than Stevie Ray Vaughan, although I'd love for them to go into a Thunderdome, right? A music dome. The reason why I bring this up is because when you have two things that are fairly equal, or at least you go, wow, I don't know how to rank them. They're both A+ movies or whatever you want to think of them. Sometimes, you look at this a little differently. In music, you can go, well, I love Stevie Ray Vaughan, but he's got such a small catalog. If I'm going to shoot pool, I want to listen to him. If I'm in that kind of mood, I'll listen to him. I go, Yngwie's got a bunch of different things, different stuff for different moods. And there's a lot more and gratuitous in your face. And there's some goofy ass shit like ABBA covers and stuff. There's more to pick from. So because I might be more inclined to do that or like playing that stuff better, I would pick that. So it's not necessarily a wrong answer. And this is a tough one, but we have to come up with one. And when I look at these two films, I go, well, what's the differential here? You've got a singular great actor in Arnold here. The others to me are forgettable, even though we know who they are. You've got the trios matchup here. Well, Bill Murray to me steals the show, and I don't think the other guys are weak. I'm not going to say the other guys aren't needed because I think that chemistry is pretty rare. So I think that's a plus for him. But again, this is really, really tough. If you're coaching and you got two people who are exactly the same, you can check their grades. You can check who tries harder. You can see who might be more flexible. You can make your value decisions based off of something. And it's very, very difficult here. I mean, I know what my winner is, and I'll say it here shortly, but I wanted to make sure we go back one more round over the good and bad of Ghostbusters and then good and bad of Terminator. Let's cut through the bullshit. Let's slice and dice here. It's the third round, baby. Let's go with Ghostbusters. Good and bad. Final thoughts.
Ghostbusters, I guess, good. I say that Bill Murray does stand out, but Harold Ramis and Dan Aykroyd and Ernie Hudson all play their parts. More so Harold Ramis, because especially their interaction, the Twinkie, the Crunch Bar, or when it comes to you're asking for 3 big ones, 5. So it's like I just love the interactions. all the way through to the end. It's like it's like he's like, Egon, we have a plan here. I'm scared beyond rational thought. He can't move. Walter Peck in there. We'll see later in Die Hard, but man, like I said, as far as negatives, I mean, negatives for me is just like, and this I can't really say anything negative with the movie. To me, it's sequels. They really don't capture the magic as the first one has, which really is hard to do. Where
Agreed.
you look at the Arnold's movie over here, second one, some would say it's better.
I don't disagree with that
Yeah,
assessment, but again, not looking at
but
the franchise and all that.
I know, but it's kind of hard not to because they both have really big franchises. Um, But as far as negatives, I really can't find a negative other than I said I just don't care for Rick Moranis, and whether he's the everyday man or not, I
Right.
don't need the everyday man in the movie. He could have been a normal person, but instead they made him the most dweebest of dweebs,
Yeah. They made
and
him Rick Moranis. That was
that
his shtick.
it wasn't believable for
Right.
me. His character was that was overacting.
Yeah, you've always pointed that out about Rick, and I can't find fault with it, and I can't unsee it. It doesn't bother me like it does you and maybe some people, but for me, I look at that and go, yeah, there's one thing to have something where you go, is it necessary for the story? Okay, you understand why I include it, even if you don't like it, even if it's like, in The Beekeeper, which we have not reviewed, but spoiler alert, somebody dies at the beginning, which sets up the story, and it's a damn shame, but they do it
Do you,
well, right?
do you know why? Do you know why the reason I probably don't like Rick Moranis much? Because I grew up with the cartoon, the real Ghostbusters, and he wasn't in it, and it was just all about straight up just Ghostbusters solving the problems, actions, comedy. It was just awesome music. So Rick Moranis' character is kind of like well, let's go away from the Ghostbusters. We're gonna set up, he's just gonna be a dog at the end. It's like, okay, that's cool. I didn't need to know his character. He could just be a random person,
Okay.
you know, but I guess they wanted to establish that he lives across the hallway from her, and like, okay, cool. Um, but
Let's do good and bad of from your perspective on Terminator, and then I'll
oh,
go through mine on Ghostbusters and Terminator, give you my answer, and you give me your final one.
Terminator. Oh, I'm trying to think. Bad was probably, like I said, I forgot what the actor is. It's not Lance Henriksen. It's the other guy, the other cop, the black cop. He's just came off dull to me. He's a throwaway character. Um, I'm trying to think of bad. I watch these movies, man. I cannot help but grin. I love everything about them. But I'm trying to think. It's like, well, we didn't need to see the Batwing, or sorry, not Batwing, but the the Arnold wing. Luckily, it was a dark enough, but you could still see something swinging back there. Ugh. Um, man, I I don't know. It's hard to say it because I love the acting in this movie. I love everything about it. It's hard, man, because I love the music. Um, I love the synth wave, but
Yeah.
maybe what's missing is that they don't have like a popular song that was out during the time. Like usually they throw in there, like we saw. Well, no,
It's
I
been a
take
while
it
since
back.
I've seen it,
Take,
so I'm
take,
not sure on
take it
that
back.
one.
They did have Glass of Hearts, by the Thompson Twins, or whatever it was. But like Ray Parker Jr.'s song was the big hit of the movie. There really wasn't, like I said, so maybe it's the music was not as great as Ghostbusters. So as far as the Terminator, he only had the synthwave. And when whatever the club scene song was, which I want to know what it is, if that's even released anywhere.
It probably is.
Yeah, but like I can only could say it would be the music. The music is not as good as Ghostbusters.
So I'll go here, and then I'll step off the plank first with my answer here, because it is tough. This is the toughest one we've had.
Yeah, this is.
Ghostbusters is a lot of fun, and I've always been known as the guy that doesn't like everything on the channel, because a lot of times I'll let you guys do some of the selections that we're having, because honestly, if I've seen stuff, I'm curious as to what y'all's opinion is going to be, and that's fine that way. I do enjoy Ghostbusters a lot. I do think it's one of the most signature movies of the 80s, not just 1984. It's lighthearted, it's comical, it's everything you could want. It's a very good representation on a short list, an island movie, if you will, of what the 80s is about in that arena. You're coming over to Terminator. I look at it and I go, it's bleak, it's dark. You're rooting for the anti-hero, which you're not supposed to do. Arnold's looks great in it. Not as great as Conan, which I think is still a better film. But this was the standard bearer for everything to come. And I did not want to put the franchises in order with them, because you're right about Terminator with some crappy sequels, but the strength of the second one alone, I think, lifts it, whereas Ghostbusters, I think, declines it. So I thought that would unfairly punish Ghostbusters. And since it's head to head, I don't care about what's going to come
Yeah,
later.
no.
So I will say this. I agree with you, and I'm gonna sound like an ass here for a moment, but I think it's very important because the 80s, this got to be a big deal, or late 70s even, let's say. There's a difference between the soundtrack, the songs that are on it, like Ray Parker Jr.'s Ghostbusters, super catchy. Absolutely right, it wins that. However, the soundtrack that's not the music track or like that, the score of the movie, if you will, the Terminator with the synthwave and all that, I like it better, and I think it's more effective for the movie. Ghostbusters is just fine, but Ghostbusters, to use one last 80s analogy, is this. Ghostbusters is like smoking pot. You're going to get a nice buzz. Edible Brewer and chat would be able to like to tell us, the effects of particular strains and how great they are and what mood you'd want. But the Terminator's like cocaine. You get on that and you're a motherfucker. It may not last as long and all that, but you definitely get more up on the Terminator versus, the Ghostbusters, which would just be like a nice little
Mhm.
buzz. So for me, the winner by a slim margin, I have to go Terminator out of these two. But Ghostbusters,
Yeah,
it's a split decision for me. It really is a tough call.
it is for me, and I'm just kind of leaning the Ghostbusters, as Mario brought up too, and just it's more quotable. Arnold has "I'll be back." That's pretty much, and a few other lines really. But Ghostbusters has the quotes, it has the music, it has the special effects. Um, yeah, honestly, I'm just gonna go with Ghostbusters. But damn, if you're asking for anything else, like another day, it might be Terminator, because I love both these movies. It is hard for me to choose on these, you know. And I'm not even going Ghostbusters biasy either. Too, it's just I just enjoy that movie. It's just slightly little bit better. Um,
Yeah, and it doesn't mean that one's necessarily a better film. I think part of it has to do with the taste and everything, but it's really hard to call this because, like, to kind of as a callback to some of our listeners that are my age or older that are Washington Redskins fans, the biggest thing about being a Washington Redskins fan in the 80s, because you're one of the top NFL franchises, is you didn't care if you lost 14 games a season as long as the
yeah,
two games you won were against Dallas. You could do that, and we'd be like, you know what?
yeah.
Wasn't the best of the season, but we beat Dallas. That's what the Terminator is like. We beat Dallas twice. Fuck you guys. I'm going to go with that, man. Ghostbusters was like rolling with like a 12-4 record, but you lose 2 rounds in the playoffs. You're like, yeah, it was a good year, but ultimately it means nothing. So, Ghostbusters is a nice little snack. The Terminator's a meal. I mean, this is
Yeah.
tough, and I don't hate Ghostbusters. I
Yep.
want to like the sequels more. It's hard for me to do that. But again, this is just a head-to-head matchup between Ghostbusters and Terminator. This is tough, but like I say, I got to go Terminator. I don't know if we've agreed on any film so far, which is really interesting because, again, this is unscripted, it's unplanned. We're just trying
I,
to go with our gut
the
reactions.
last one I think we agreed on was the
Conan?
last one was Conan, was the number one. But like I said, dude, I love Terminator. I'll not say it's a bad movie at all. At all, it is probably one of the best movies that came out, not in 1984, just in the 80s.
Yeah, MKF's got an interesting comment here about two different types of movies and genres, which is true.
Yeah.
We're not looking for the same genres where we're looking for impact players. We're looking for matchups because fights are made from matchups, right? And we want representation of the 80s here.
It doesn't
Baseball
have.
player versus a football player, Joe Montana versus Babe Ruth. What I would argue on something like that, while Joe Montana is one of the best quarterbacks of all time, Babe Ruth, I think, arguably is the best of all time and had more of an impact on the sport and game than Joe did, even though the NFL was bigger. People forget that for the longest time, baseball was the number one pastime, not
Yeah.
professional football. Professional football has only been hardcore for maybe 2 generations. Baseball has at least that under its belt. And I am not a baseball guy at all. So I think it's that. But yeah, Terminator for me, he's mentioning a better story. I mean, there's a lot more to it than Ghostbusters. That doesn't mean it automatically makes it better, but you know, Cameron always just had that singular vision, but Ghostbusters does capture the fun part of the 80s. That's why I think this is such a fantastic matchup, not because of the films, but overall, like we'd say here on the Xtreme Movie Show, we like to cover the themes of not just the movies, but the decades and how they fit in and try to branch it to other things to have those kind of 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon sort of conversations. Because
Mhm.
this is tough, but it really is true. Ghostbusters is so fun, both wildly successful compared to their budgets. And who knew what James Cameron would do after this? I know he did The Abyss, which was very interesting,
Yes.
but then he really blew up with Terminator 2, like people were saying in chat. It was just I wonder if that actually is a better film than the Terminator. I don't know, but it might be. And one day we'll visit that, I'm sure, when we get to 90, 91, whenever it came released. Ghostbusters 2, I know it kind of
Yeah,
makes you
yeah,
go, it's not the first one, is it?
right.
Yeah, Maron, you're saying which one was she watching if she had the choice? Ghostbusters. That's true. You know, God, I always bring up the Jim Carrey bit. Ace Ventura is not really that great of a movie in a sense, but if you had to pick one of his to watch over and again, I'd probably have to pick it because it's so damn good. But damn it, then you're like, why is it so good? You know everything that's coming. They just capture it, and unfortunately, Terminator lacks all that. Ghostbusters has it. You're right.
Terminator.
Big Bill Murray, everything.
Yeah, Terminator is the movie that I want to play as a video game. Where Ghostbusters, it's just fun watching the one-liners. It's like it's basically hang out with your buddies.
Yeah. No, I want to take a moment here because a couple of people just joined the chat, and I think they
Yeah.
caught us midstream here. I want to kind of let them know what the Thunderdome is. What we're doing here on the Xtreme Movie Show is revisiting some old material that we initially, when we launched, we just wanted to capture because we love the 80s. We say we're 80s based because there are a lot of fun times going on in it. And so for me, growing up as a teenager in the 80s, RDV in the 90s, and the young 20-something Professor Pixel in the last decade, we have, like what I like to say is 3 generations of different experiences to bring and talk about what we like and don't. We don't hate watch, blue pill, black pill, or whatever, but the Thunderdome is a preview of what we'll be talking about on Sundays for the next few weeks. So in this case, we picked 2 incredible films that usually are on our 10 short list for that year. In this case, 1984. Talk about them, get people primed up to see what they remember and all that. So that way on Sunday, we can go ahead and talk about 10 films, not the 10 best, the 10 worst, the 10 whatever, his 10 or my 10. We put a group of them together, we consolidate it down, and then we usually just go, honestly, in chronological release order of the year and talk about these 10 films and some runner-ups, stuff that we think is significant. So while there's so many good films these years, as I mentioned before last week for 1983 RDV, things started to get very lighthearted. People, I think, were starting to enjoy coming out of the decade of the inflations and negative vibes. Generally, there was this optimism in the 80s. And you don't get that in Terminator, but you damn sure get it in Ghostbusters. So Ghostbusters does get a plus for giving the people what they want.
And like I said, if we go back again, going through the 80s, and we just decide to say our top 10, or say we just try to say we're going to do Terminator versus Conan the Barbarian. It's like I just love these matchups, sometimes, because we're not always going to agree on everything. But the thing is that we let you guys agree in the chat, and also leave your comments down below, let you know what wins. Because if you guys let us know, go back and let us know in the comment section. What we'll do is we'll tally up as far as who the losers are, and then we'll have the losers of each pairing go against one another. Kind of like a little bracket thing. Because we're ready for March Madness.
All these combinations because it's so fun to do or whatever. But we're trying to go year
comedy
by year
versus comedy, or just horror versus horror. It's like
yeah, 85 is going to be a tough one because I think it's going to be Back to the Future versus whatever, insert blank here, and that's going to be tough. So even I go, man, Back to the Future is one of my all-time favorites, not just in the 80s, but overall. I love it. I think it's the perfect film. And I go, what could have a puncher's chance against it? And I'd have to think really hard. I mean, for 1984, I might throw Revenge of the Ninja up there, but I'd have to be in the mode to support that. But it's tough. You have to draw a line in the Thunderdome because, again, as we said at the beginning, 2 movies enter, 1 movie leaves. There's got to be winner and loser, no participation trophies, all that. Conan's huge. I love it, but still, man,
like I said, the best thing is we let you guys decide. We'll give us our opinions, but I mean, ultimately it's up to you guys because we have fun with hanging out with everybody who watches this.
Yeah, and we'll be doing Sunday's Super Bowl, so we're going to actually probably record 84 offline.
Yep,
So
it'll be appearing same time it normally does on Sunday. It'll be pre-recorded.
Yeah.
For 1984.
Thursday, we've got a tribute stream to Carl Weathers dropping a little bit. We spent a few minutes the other night talking about him after we'd got the news and, just decide what we wanted to mention, what we liked about him and stuff. So that'll be dropping tomorrow night. And then, of course, we're going to be, when Pixel gets back in town, he was at Comic-Con. He's going to give us a live report, as he promised. MegaCon, whatever the hell it was. I think it was MegaCon, right? Not Comic-Con. Here in Orlando. He and I will be deciding what TV show that we're going to be reviewing next. This is when we do season 1 review. So we go through each episode, just he and I do it. But before we get into that, on our short list, we've been trying to do the James Bond movies in order because Pixel's not seen a lot of them. Being the young 20-something, it's our job to educate him and just show him what James Bond is all about. So the next one up for that will be A View to a Kill. Also, 1985. So we've got some synergy going on here too. RDV,
Yep.
anything that you need to plug? Any other thing you need to get out there?
Nope. You guys, please go back and watch the first one if you haven't done. So go through these. We're just trying to get some views up on this channel. We're trying to get at least 4,000 views so we can get eligible to be monetized. Right now we're hurting for views, but we have the subs. So if you guys haven't already done so, please go back and just you can have you can have the mute down. You can have us muted. I don't care. Just go through the playlist. Let it go, baby, all day long, and just give us the views if you can. Especially if you really like this channel and you just like talking about movies and stuff. But
Yeah, and one thing too with the engagement going up, then one thing that I've talked about doing things a little bit, tweaking it. It's really fun when a lot of people get in here because we always kind of went a stream of consciousness as far as our selections and connections
yeah,
and what we felt like a little bit too, or obviously if people had requested stuff, we tried hitting most of those, and we have. So to me, it's kind of, we have fun. That's really what our focus is at. We're not, clickbaiting or any of that sort of stuff, but it's really cool to see a lot of people in chat. So we want to get to the point where we're doing this a bit more often. We have more people in chat at the same time, and we know ahead of time what we're going to be doing, hence the reason why we're doing the Thunderdome preview versus what's going to be going on like for the 85 films. Because you know what, guys, the week after that Tuesday, RDV and I will be here again tonight doing 1986. And then we're going to be doing that Sunday after that. We're going to be doing the 10 films from 86. And we're going to go through at least a decade of the 80s, see how that goes, decide how we want to do that, if we want to explore any potential 80s matchups before going on either to like the 70s or the 90s.
Plus, it's exciting when you guys are here and let us know, especially the top 10s, because I like seeing what other people like more. Like I said, that's why I love the Thunderdomes, because Rob and I, we might agree on something, we might disagree, but I'm curious to see what people will go to. Because normally, I was kind of like, I think everybody's gonna go for Terminator on this because people just love Arnold. I'm just curious to see what Ghostbusters, the one that actually blew the socks off of Arnold. Arnold is who he won't be back in 1984 because he was a smaller hit, where Ghostbusters is a huge banger, but yet people grab towards doing the cult classic. They go to the Terminator. So I'm just curious to see if anybody will go against the grain with it with me and go to Ghostbusters. And Marania says it wins by a hair. So for those who are here this week in the chat or watching it on replay, let us know which one wins.
And I've maintained this too, and honestly, it's like a social experiment in a way. I've said to E so many times before, and he's run his channel for a very long time, and everybody has their own ways of how they want to do things. That he focuses on comics. I know you guys over at Geeky Puppet Show kind of do mostly that, but in your own way, and do readings and stuff. So everybody has a different perspective. But for me, I've maintained that the 80s is probably the last really fun decade of films. And even though there's a lot of films that are enjoyable in the 90s and 2000s, we've lamented the fact that it's really hard to find a lot of really good stuff we're talking about recent. And we certainly have on here. I've talked about different sci-fi shows or horror things or this or that, or limited editions on my own and solo and with you guys. And so we've done that. We've done Resident Alien, Haven. We've done a bunch. It's just to find that one thing that seems to stick that people really get into is interesting, because we want to enjoy it, first of all, right? We don't want to just say, oh, we got to cover Barbie because that's the big thing. Screw that. That's not what we do. But for me, I really look at this as an excuse to go, I'm trying to prove my point here that, as an 80s based channel, that when we go back and look at Humphrey Bogart films, they're still really freaking good. And it gives me an excuse to maybe go back and watch something from the 80s I haven't seen in a really long time. Or maybe you haven't seen it and said, I think you'd really, really like this. Or, hey, based off, if I say it sucks, you're gonna be like, yeah, I know how Rob is, so I know I'm gonna like that film. That's all what we do here.
That used to be the case. That used to be the case, because as I watch more things, I'm like, I'm curious, like, because I know you like certain things, but I'm like, there's times when I'm like, I'll picture like Rob's probably not gonna like this, and it's like, and then you come out, he's like, holy shit, he liked it, Mikey, he liked it.
Well, I like to think I have a range and a taste. I just think a lot of films today don't have that range. And like I keep talking about how fantastic The Bounty is, but I think there's no way in hell you guys would ever watch it.
No, and it comes down to basically whatever mood you're in too affects who you're watching. So you may not like a movie a certain day, and the next time you watch it's like, you know what? I actually do like this movie. This is actually really cool. I don't like the first time watch
an 80s slasher with Rachel Ward in it that you would have never thought about doing before.
Night School, My Bloody Valentine these are our first watches for me. So so getting into more of that, Enter the Ninja. Never would have thought to watch that.
Yeah, I mean, there you go. All right, what do you got coming up tonight?
Well, tonight I'll be going in a few minutes going on to the Geeky Puppet Show, talking about comic books coming out this week. So if you like that, check out the Geeky Puppet Show. But and if you're subscribed here but not subscribed to Geeky Puppet Show, go over there. We're about 4 subs away from being 500 and subscribers, and then we'll be eligible for super chats. Then you can insult us, but you have to pay for it though.
In case coming up matchups, Terrifier versus Hatchet. We did Pumpkinhead with Lance Henriksen that I remember too. So there's a lot of good ones out there. Children of the Corn versus the Rapping Leprechaun. I mean, I don't know. I mean,
I think for Thunderdome,
go with this.
For Thunderdome, I think we're gonna stick around the 80s for a while. We'll go revisit other movies that we haven't talked about, and you might even see some of these other movies. You might see Ghostbusters up against Indiana Jones or Caddyshack. Who knows? Or even Stripes.
Yeah. All right,
Bill
guys.
Murray
Thanks
Bill
for
Murray.
watching, listening, spending some time with us tonight, letting people know we exist and all that too. That's always appreciated. It's the best thing, like I always say, you can do. It's we enjoy it a lot, and we do it whether you're here or not. But we're more happier that you're here. It makes the time go by so fast, and it's a lot of fun revisiting some of these films and getting a chance to talk about, maybe having a new perspective on it from you guys and from us too as well. So for RDV and everybody involved here at the Xtreme Movie Show, have a good night, and as always, stay extreme. Good night now.
Later, guys. Ghostbusters are better.